In the quiet of a crisp autumn morning, sunlight streamed through the delicate lace curtains of my cozy farmhouse kitchen, painting soft patterns across the weathered oak table. For nearly 5 decades, this table had been the heart of countless mornings shared with my late husband Henry. 5 years had passed since his sudden death, yet I still found myself setting out 2 coffee mugs each dawn, a stubborn habit woven into the fabric of my grief. At 70, I'd learned that loss doesn't simply vanish. It lingers, settling into the corners of your life like a familiar, heavy piece of furniture. As I stood at the sink, hands dipped in warm, soapy water, scrubbing those mugs, a faint buzzing broke the stillness. At first, I mistook it for a wayward bee, not uncommon in late September here in rural Vermont, where insects often sought refuge as winter loomed. But the sound persisted, sharp and mechanical, emanating from the wooden sideboard by the front door. Curious, I dried my hands on my apron and called out, "Hello? Did someone leave something behind?" The house answered with silence. My daughter-in-law, Clara, had visited just half an hour earlier, as she did every Tuesday morning. Her visits were predictable, almost ritualistic, though I often wondered if they were more about keeping up appearances than genuine care. Clara was always impeccable, her outfits perfectly coordinated, her smile polished, her life seemingly flawless. She was the kind of woman who organized her pantry by color and never left a single dish out of place. The buzzing sounded again, insistent. I shuffled toward the sideboard, my knees creaking with age, and there it was. Clara's phone, face up, its screen glowing to life. My breath caught in my throat as the image on the screen came into focus, a photo of Henry, my husband, who'd been gone for 5 years. But this wasn't a photo I knew. It wasn't one of the faded snapshots from our family albums or the framed portrait on my mantel. Henry was wearing a vibrant green jacket I'd never seen, standing in a place I didn't recognize, his smile brighter and more carefree than I'd seen in the final years of his life. The phone vibrated again, and a text message preview appeared beneath Henry's image. "Tuesday again, darling. Counting the seconds until we're together." My heart stuttered. The timestamp showed the message was fresh, sent just moments ago at 9:45 a.m. Someone was texting Clara, someone using a photo of my dead husband as their contact image. My hand trembled as I reached for the phone, knowing I was crossing a line. Privacy was sacred. I'd always believed that. But this was Henry's face, a face I'd loved for 47 years, a face that shouldn't be on anyone's phone but mine. Against my better judgment, I picked it up. Clara had never been cautious with her passcode. I'd seen her enter it countless times during her visits, always the same 4 digits, 0720, the birthday of my grandson, Ethan. Holding my breath, I typed it in. The screen unlocked without resistance. The message thread opened, and my world tilted. The contact was labeled simply J, no full name, just a single letter. But the messages stretched back months, maybe years. I scrolled, my fingers clumsy, my eyes scanning words that felt like daggers. "Can't wait for tomorrow. Wear that blue dress, love. Last night was perfect. You make me feel alive. Your husband's clueless. We're in the clear." My son, Daniel, Clara's husband of 15 years, father of my grandson, the man who'd helped Henry fix the tractor when he was just a teenager, oblivious to this betrayal. The messages painted a picture I couldn't unsee. Clara and someone else, meeting secretly, possibly in my own home, using Henry's image in some twisted game. My knees buckled, and I sank into the chair by the door, a sturdy oak piece Henry had carved for me as a wedding gift decades ago. The phone felt like a burning coal in my hands, heavy with secrets I wasn't sure I wanted to uncover. I should have stopped there. I should have called Clara, told her she'd forgotten her phone and let her retrieve it. But the words on the screen wouldn't let me go. The farm's perfect. She never suspects. Make sure the old lady doesn't catch on. She's sharper than she looks. The old lady was me. They'd been meeting here, in my house, under my nose, in the place where I'd raised my family, where I'd mourned Henry, where I'd poured my heart into every meal, every memory. My hands shook as I scrolled further, finding a message that stopped my heart entirely. I kept some of his things at the lake house. Want me to toss them or keep them for you? Clara's reply, dated just months after Henry's death. Keep them. I like wearing his sweaters. They remind me of us, of those afternoons when Maggie thought he was at his cousin's. Henry, Clara, an affair. The realization hit like a physical blow, stealing my breath, making the room spin. My husband, my partner of 47 years, had been unfaithful with my daughter-in-law, in my own home, while I'd been grieving his absence. The sound of tires on gravel snapped me back to reality. Clara's silver SUV was pulling into the driveway. I had seconds to decide. Confront her? Demand answers? Or play ignorant? Protect myself until I understood the full scope of this betrayal? The doorbell chimed, and I made my choice. I slipped the phone into my apron pocket, grabbed a dish towel, and opened the door with a smile I didn't feel. "Clara, dear, back so soon," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. She stood on the porch, flawless as always, but I saw something new in her eyes. Calculation, a flicker of unease. "I think I left my phone here," she said, her smile tight. "I'm such a scatterbrain today. Have you seen it?" I tilted my head, feigning confusion. "Your phone? No, I haven't noticed it. But come in. Let's look together." As she stepped inside, her perfume trailing behind her, a scent I now realized I'd smelled on Henry's clothes in those final years, I felt a shift within me. The grieving widow was fading, replaced by someone sharper, someone determined to uncover every hidden truth, no matter the cost. As we searched the kitchen, Clara's movements were methodical, almost too thorough, checking places a phone wouldn't likely be. Behind the kettle, inside a drawer. I watched her, my hand resting lightly on the apron pocket where her phone burned against my hip. She suspected I knew something, I could tell, but I kept my expression neutral, the doting mother-in-law playing her part. "Maybe it's in your car," I suggested brightly. "You might have taken it with you by mistake." She hesitated, her eyes lingering on my apron for a moment too long, then nodded. "Maybe. I'll check. Thanks, Maggie." As she left, I stood at the window, watching her SUV disappear down the gravel drive. Only then did I pull out the phone, my hands trembling with a mix of rage and resolve. This was just the beginning. I was about to unravel a web of lies that threatened to destroy everything I held dear, and I wouldn't stop until I had answers. Now, if this story's got you hooked, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community. We dive into gripping tales like this all the time, and I'd love for you to be part of it. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Vermont, like me, or somewhere far across the globe? Your support keeps these stories coming, and I can't wait to share what happens next. Stay tuned. With Clara's SUV vanishing down the gravel drive, I stood frozen at the kitchen window, the weight of her phone in my apron pocket, pressing against me like a ticking bomb. The Vermont autumn sun hung low, casting long shadows across the fields I'd tended with Henry for nearly half a century. My hands, still calloused from years of farm work, trembled as I pulled the phone out again, its screen glowing with secrets I wasn't sure I was ready to face. The image of Henry, smiling in that unfamiliar green jacket, stared back at me, a ghost from a life I thought I'd known. I'd unlocked the phone with Ethan's birthday, 0720, and the message thread with Jay had already revealed too much. Clara's affair with someone using Henry's photo, their secret meetings in my home, and chilling references to Henry's belongings kept at a mysterious lake house. My heart pounded, a mix of grief and fury, but I couldn't stop now. I needed answers, and this phone was my only lead. I sank into Henry's hand-carved oak chair, its familiar creak grounding me as I scrolled deeper into the message thread. The conversation stretched back years, a digital diary of betrayal. Messages from 3 years ago mentioned the farm as their meeting place, with phrases like, "Maggie's too busy with her garden to notice," and "The old barn's perfect. Nobody checks it." My barn, where Henry and I had stored hay, fixed equipment, and shared quiet moments during summer storms. The thought of Clara and this Jay using it as their hideout made my stomach churn. I kept scrolling, my eyes catching on a message dated 4 months after Henry's death. "I miss him sometimes, but you're better. You don't hesitate like he did." The reply from Jay: "He was weak. I'm not. We'll finish what he started." Finish what? My mind raced. Was this about more than an affair? Had Henry been involved in something darker, something that led to his death? The phone buzzed in my hand, startling me. Another message from Jay. "You forgot your phone, didn't you? Call me when you get it back. We need to plan for Tuesday." The timestamp was fresh, 10:12 a.m. My pulse quickened. Clara would realize soon enough that I had her phone, and I had to act fast before she returned with a better excuse or a worse intention. I needed to preserve this evidence, but I wasn't tech-savvy. My grandson, Ethan, had taught me how to use a laptop during the pandemic lockdowns, but I was no expert. Still, I remembered him showing me how to back up files. I hurried to Henry's old study, a room untouched since his passing, where his ancient laptop sat collecting dust. The screen flickered to life, and I connected Clara's phone with a cable I found in a drawer. My hands fumbled, but after a few tries, I managed to transfer the message thread, photos, and anything else I could find to a folder on the desktop. I copied it all to a thumb drive, one Ethan had left behind, and hid it inside a hollowed-out copy of the Farmer's Almanac on the bookshelf. No one would look there. As I worked, my mind churned through possibilities. Who was Jay? The messages suggested someone who knew Henry intimately, someone who'd taken his place after his death. I thought of Henry's nephew, James, who lived in Burlington, about an hour away. James had always been close to Henry, helping settle his cousin George's estate after George's death 2 years ago. Could he have found something in George's papers? Something about Henry's secrets? The messages mentioned a lake house, and I vaguely recalled Henry talking about a cabin his uncle owned near Lake Champlain, supposedly sold years ago. Had that been a lie too? I opened the phone's photo gallery, hoping for clues. There were dozens of images, hidden in a folder labeled Memories. Henry and Clara together, laughing on my porch, in my garden, even one in our bedroom with the familiar quilt I'd sewn for our 20th anniversary in the background. The betrayal felt like a physical wound, each photo slicing deeper. One image showed them in the barn, Clara wearing Henry's old flannel shirt, dated July 2019, 6 months before his heart attack. Had he been thinking of her as I held his hand in the hospital, whispering promises of love? The front door creaked open, and I nearly dropped the phone. "Mum?" My son, Daniel, stepped inside, his work boots heavy on the hardwood. He looked exhausted, his face pale, his shirt rumpled as if he'd slept in it. "I thought I'd check on you. Clara said she was here earlier." My heart raced. I couldn't let him know I had the phone. Not yet. I slipped it back into my apron and forced a smile. "She was, but she left a bit ago. Forgot something, maybe." He frowned, sensing my unease. "You okay, Mum? You look off." I hesitated. Daniel deserved the truth. But how do you tell your son his wife betrayed him with his father? I needed him to trust me, to help me, but I couldn't risk him confronting Clara too soon. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Just tired. Why don't you sit? I'll make us some tea." As I busied myself with the kettle, Daniel slumped into a chair, rubbing his temples. "Clara's been acting strange," he said quietly. "She's gone every Tuesday, says it's yoga or errands, but I checked our bank statements. No charges for the gym, no grocery receipts on those days. I feel like I'm losing my mind." My heart ached for him. He was so close to the truth, yet so far from imagining the depth of it. I set a mug in front of him and took a deep breath. "Daniel, what if I told you I found something? Something that might explain why Clara's been distant?" His eyes snapped to mine, wary but hopeful. "What do you mean?" I pulled the phone from my apron, my decision made. "She left this here this morning. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. And I found messages about her and Dad." His face went white. "Dad? What are you talking about?" I handed him the phone, watching as he entered the passcode, Ethan's birthday, just as I had. His fingers moved slowly at first, then faster, scrolling through the messages, his expression shifting from confusion to horror. "No," he whispered. "This can't be real. Dad and Clara? For years?" I nodded, my throat tight. "There's more. They were meeting here, at the farm. And after Dad died, she started with someone else. Someone called Jay. I think it might be James." Daniel's hands shook, the phone nearly slipping from his grip. "James? My cousin? Why would he?" He trailed off, reading another message. "The lake house is ours now. Maggie'll never find it." He looked up, his eyes blazing. "They're still meeting. This Jay is using Dad's photo, continuing whatever this is. Mum, what if Dad didn't die naturally? What if they—" He couldn't finish the thought, but I could. The possibility had been gnawing at me since I'd read about Henry's clothes at the lake house, the casual way Clara spoke of keeping them. "We need to find out," I said firmly. "But we can't confront Clara yet. She's clever, Daniel. If she suspects we know, she'll cover her tracks. We need evidence, something undeniable." He nodded, his jaw tight. "What do we do?" I leaned forward, my mind sharpening despite the emotional weight. "The messages mention a lake house near Lake Champlain. I found GPS coordinates in one of the photos. We can go there, see who she's meeting, and get proof." Daniel hesitated, then pulled out his own phone. "I can track her car. I installed a GPS app last month when I started suspecting something. She doesn't know." I felt a surge of pride for my son's foresight, mixed with sorrow that he'd had to suspect his wife at all. "Good," I said. "Tonight, then. The last message said they're meeting Tuesday, but we can't wait. If she's with Jay now, we need to catch them." That evening, we drove north in Daniel's truck, the coordinates guiding us along winding country roads. The October air was sharp, the forest darkening as twilight settled. My heart pounded as we turned onto a dirt path marked by a rusted mailbox, leading to a small cabin with a green metal roof. Clara's SUV was parked outside, next to a pickup truck I recognized. James's. "That's his truck," Daniel whispered, his voice tight with rage. We parked a quarter-mile back, hidden by trees, and crept closer on foot. Through the cabin's window, I saw Clara and James sitting at a table, wine glasses in hand, laughing as if they hadn't shattered my family. Daniel started recording on his phone, capturing their voices through the thin walls. "The old lady's clueless," James was saying. "She'll never figure out what we did to Henry." Clara laughed, cold and sharp. "She's too busy mourning him to notice. But we need to move the money soon. The insurance company's asking questions." Money? Insurance? My blood ran cold. This wasn't just an affair. They'd done something to Henry, something tied to a payout I'd never known about. Daniel's hand tightened on my arm, his face pale but determined. We had evidence now, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. We needed to know the full scope of their plan and why they were using Henry's photo. As we crouched in the shadows, I realized this was no longer just about betrayal. It was about justice. For Henry, for Daniel, for Ethan, and for me. The war had begun, and I was ready to fight. The drive back from the lake house was a silent one, the weight of what we'd heard pressing down on Daniel and me like a storm cloud over the Vermont hills. The recorded voices of Clara and James echoed in my mind. "The old lady's clueless. She'll never figure out what we did to Henry. We need to move the money soon." Their casual cruelty, the way they spoke of my husband's death as if it were a business transaction, churned my grief into something sharper, more dangerous. I gripped the armrest of Daniel's truck, my knuckles white, as we wound through the darkened forest roads back to the farmhouse. The thumb drive with Clara's phone data was tucked safely in my coat pocket, and Daniel's phone held the video of their damning conversation. But I knew it wasn't enough. Not yet. Vermont's two-party consent laws meant our secret recording might not hold up in court, and Clara's phone, which I'd kept, could be spun as theft if we weren't careful. We needed something airtight, something that would force Clara and James to expose themselves without room for denial. Back at the farmhouse, the kitchen felt both familiar and alien, its warmth tainted by the secrets I now knew. I set the kettle on, more for comfort than necessity, as Daniel paced the floor, his face a mix of rage and devastation. "They killed him, Mum," he said, his voice breaking. "Clara and James, they did something to Dad, and they're planning to get away with it." I nodded, pouring hot water into mugs we wouldn't drink. "We'll stop them," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But we have to be smart, Daniel. They're not just cunning. They're dangerous. If we confront them now, they'll destroy evidence, twist the story, maybe even come after us." He stopped pacing, his eyes searching mine. "So what's the plan? We can't just sit here." I took a deep breath, the seeds of a strategy forming. "We investigate further. We find the money they mentioned, figure out who Jay really is, James or someone else, and we make them confess, legally in front of witnesses." Daniel sat across from me, his hands clenched around the untouched mug. "How do we do that? They know we're onto them. Clara's probably already suspicious about her phone." He was right. Clara's searching eyes in the kitchen earlier had lingered too long on my apron pocket. She might not know I had the phone, but she wasn't careless. "First," I said, "we secure the evidence we have." I pulled the thumb drive from my pocket and handed it to him. "Hide this somewhere safe, not here, somewhere Clara or James would never look." He nodded, slipping it into his jacket. I'll take it to my office in town tomorrow. Lock it in the safe. I continued. Next, we need to know about this money. They mentioned an insurance company and moving it. If there's a policy, it's tied to Dad's death. We need to see our financial records, bank statements, insurance documents, anything from the months before he died. We moved to Henry's study, a room I'd avoided since his passing. The air smelled of old books and leather, a reminder of the man I thought I'd known. Daniel booted up the laptop, and we began digging through years of financial records I'd kept in a filing cabinet, paper statements Henry had insisted on keeping despite the digital age. My fingers brushed against his handwriting on old farm invoices, and for a moment, grief threatened to overwhelm me. But I pushed it aside. There was no time for mourning now. After an hour of searching, Daniel found it. A bank statement from 5 years ago, 3 months before Henry's death, showing a payment of $1,500 to Green Mountain Insurance, labeled as medical expenses. I frowned, my heart racing. We never had an insurance policy like that, I said. Henry handled our finances, but he'd have told me about something this big. Daniel's jaw tightened. Clara helped with the bills back then, remember? You were so focused on Dad's doctor visits, she said she'd take the load off. The realization hit like a slap. Clara had access to our accounts during Henry's final months, when his heart condition had worsened and I'd been distracted, shuttling him to specialists. She could have set it up, I said slowly, forged his signature, opened a policy, and hidden the payout. Daniel pulled up our online banking portal, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Look at this, he said, pointing to a series of small withdrawals, each under $100, labeled as miscellaneous. They started 2 months after Henry's death and continued monthly. Someone's been draining the account bit by bit, he said. Not enough to notice unless you're looking. I leaned closer, my mind racing. That's how they've been hiding it. But where's the main payout? They said they need to move the money. We needed more information, but Clara's phone was our best lead. I hesitated, then opened it again, navigating to the photo gallery. One image caught my eye, a screenshot of a trust document, the Henry Sullivan Memorial Trust, with James listed as the trustee. The date was 2 months after Henry's death, and the beneficiary was listed as heirs of Henry Sullivan. But the fine print gave James full control over distributions. This is it, I whispered. They diverted the insurance money to a trust James controls. He's probably been funneling it to himself and Clara. Daniel's face darkened. James was always around after Dad died, helping with the estate. He had access to everything. I nodded, remembering how James had sorted through Henry's papers, claiming it was to spare me the burden. We need to find that trust's records, I said. They're public if he filed them with the county clerk. Daniel accessed the county's online database, and there it was. The trust, with James as sole trustee, authorized to take up to 40% as trustee fees, and Clara listed as a consultant entitled to another 40%. That left a mere 20% for Henry's actual heirs, Daniel and me. They planned to keep most of it, Daniel said, his voice shaking with anger. They killed Dad for this. The word killed hung heavy in the air. We didn't have proof yet, but the pieces were falling into place. Henry's heart attack had been sudden, unexpected despite his condition. I remembered that last family dinner, Clara insisting Henry take his pills early because the meal ran late. Her overly attentive behavior, the way she'd refilled his glass, served his plate. Had she slipped something into his food? His medication? My phone buzzed, shattering the tension. An unknown number. I opened the message, and my blood ran cold. Stop digging, or Ethan pays the price. Daniel grabbed the phone, his face paling as he read it. Ethan's at my mother-in-law's, he said, already dialing her number. Clara dropped him off yesterday. The call was brief, his voice tight. He's fine, still there, asleep. I told her not to let Clara near him without calling me first. Another text came through. We know you were at the lake house. Destroy the recording, forget everything, or Ethan has an accident. You have until tomorrow night. My heart pounded, but anger overpowered fear. They were threatening my grandson, my 13-year-old Ethan, who loved building snow forts and playing video games, who didn't deserve to be a pawn in their game. Daniel stood, fists clenched. I'm calling the police. This ends now. I grabbed his arm. Wait. If we go to the police now, they'll take Ethan into protective custody while they investigate. Clara's his mother. She has rights, and she'll use them. We need leverage, something so damning they can't wriggle out of it. He stared at me, torn between rage and reason. What kind of leverage? I leaned forward, my mind racing. We make them panic. We force them to make a mistake. The messages, the trust, the insurance money, they're all tied to Dad's death. If we can get them to move the money or admit what they did, we'll have proof. I paused, an idea forming, risky but necessary. We blackmail James, make him think he can save himself by betraying Clara. Daniel looked skeptical. Blackmail? Mom, that's insane. I shook my head. Not insane, strategic. We send an anonymous message, say we know about the murder, the trust, everything. We demand he transfers part of the money to an untraceable account, or we go to the police with evidence that Clara killed Dad. If he pays, we have proof he's complicit. If he doesn't, he'll contact Clara, and we'll be watching. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but how do we do it safely? We drove to an all-night diner in town, using their public Wi-Fi to create an anonymous email account. I drafted the message carefully. I know about the poison. I know about the lake house. I know about the insurance fraud. Transfer $200,000 to the account below within 24 hours, or I tell the police Clara murdered Henry. You walk free. She doesn't. Choose wisely. A friend. Daniel set up a cryptocurrency wallet, untraceable, just as Ethan had once explained to me during a tech lesson. We sent the email to James's personal address, one I'd found in an old family contact list. Back at the farmhouse, we waited, the silence heavy. At 2:17 a.m., my phone rang. James. Maggie, we need to talk. Just you and me. Noon tomorrow, at the lake house. Come alone, or Ethan's in danger. My heart skipped, but I kept my voice calm. I'll be there. He hung up, and Daniel shook his head furiously. No way you're going alone. They've killed before. I met his eyes, resolute. I won't be alone. I'll wear a recording device, legal, admissible. I'll tell James I'm recording from the start, get his consent. Whatever he says, we'll have it on tape. Daniel protested, but I held firm. If this goes wrong, you protect Ethan. Keep him safe. I'm doing this for all of us. The next morning, I visited the local police station and met with Detective Larson, who'd contacted me yesterday about reopening Henry's case based on an anonymous tip. I showed her the threatening texts about Ethan, keeping Clara's phone hidden. I'm meeting someone today who might be behind this, I said, giving her the lake house address. I'll be recording legally with consent. If I don't call by 1 p.m., come find me. Larson looked concerned but agreed, jotting down the details. Back at the farmhouse, Daniel helped me set up a small recording device, clipped discreetly to my sweater, the microphone hidden in my collar. "Promise you'll be careful," he said, his eyes red from sleeplessness. I squeezed his hand. "I promise. If this works, we'll have everything we need to end this." As Daniel drove me to a drop-off point half a mile from the lake house, I felt the weight of what I was about to do. I'd tell James I was ready to confess to Henry's murder, offering to take the fall in exchange for the insurance money returning to Henry's estate, and Clara leaving Daniel's life without a fight. It was a lie, a trap to get James to admit the truth on tape. But as we parked, my phone buzzed again. A new text from the unknown number. "We're watching. No tricks, or Ethan pays." My resolve hardened. They'd underestimated me, thinking age meant weakness. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The October sun hung high but cold as I trudged the final half-mile through the woods to the lake house, each step crunching on fallen leaves, my knees protesting with every movement. At 70, I wasn't built for this kind of trek, but adrenaline and resolve pushed me forward. The small recording device clipped to my sweater felt like a lifeline, its tiny microphone hidden in my collar, ready to capture every word of the confrontation ahead. My heart pounded, not just from fear, but from a burning determination to end this nightmare. Clara and James had betrayed my family, possibly murdered my husband Henry, and now threatened my grandson, Ethan. They thought they'd outsmarted me, an old lady they dismissed as naive, but I was about to turn their arrogance against them. Daniel had dropped me off, his face etched with worry, but I'd insisted he stay behind to protect Ethan. If this went wrong, he was our last line of defense. The lake house came into view, a modest cabin with a green metal roof nestled against Lake Champlain's shore, its windows glowing faintly in the midday light. James's pickup truck sat beside Clara's silver SUV, confirming they were both inside. My hand brushed the recording device, double-checking it was on. I'd told Detective Larson I'd be recording legally, with consent, and I'd make sure James and Clara knew it from the start. Their words would be their undoing. As I climbed the porch steps, the door swung open before I could knock. James stood there, his smile too warm, too practiced, like a salesman hiding a knife. "Maggie, good to see you," he said, as if I'd come for tea. Behind him, Clara sat at a small wooden table, her posture perfect, her eyes cold and unreadable. On the table, glinting in the dim light, was a revolver. "Come in," James said, stepping aside. I took a steadying breath and crossed the threshold, my voice clear as I spoke. "Before we start, I'm recording this conversation for my protection. Is that okay?" James's smile didn't falter. "Fine by me. Nothing to hide here." Clara's lips twitched, but she said nothing, her gaze locked on me like a predator sizing up prey. I sat where James gestured, noting the room's layout: one door, two windows, both within their line of sight. The revolver was closer to Clara, its barrel pointed slightly away from me, but still within her reach. They'd planned this carefully, but I'd planned too. Clara leaned forward, her nurse's voice smooth and clinical. "You've been busy, Maggie, snooping through my phone, following us here, thinking you're clever." I kept my expression neutral. "I found what you didn't want me to see. Messages, photos, proof you were with Henry, and now with James." Her eyes narrowed, but James laughed, leaning against the doorframe. "You're sharp, I'll give you that. But you're in over your head. You should have left the phone alone." I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. "Why use Henry's photo for your contact, James? To taunt me? Or because you're picking up where he left off?" Clara's hand twitched toward the gun, but she stopped herself, smirking. "You're fishing. You don't know half of it." Then tell me, I said, my voice calm despite the storm inside. Tell me what you did to Henry. Tell me about the money. James's smile faded, and he exchanged a glance with Clara. You're not in a position to ask questions, he said, his tone hardening. Here's how this works. You write a confession, say you killed Henry because you found out about his affair. You poisoned him with digoxin, got it from your sister's old prescription. Then you write a suicide note. You came here, overwhelmed by guilt, and took your own life with these. He pulled a bottle of sleeping pills from his pocket. My sleeping pills, stolen from my medicine cabinet. It's clean, simple. Daniel inherits the farm. Clara gets her share in the divorce, and we all move on. I raised an eyebrow, stalling. And if I refuse? Clara picked up the gun, her movements deliberate. We shoot you and stage it as suicide anyway. But that's messier, raises questions. This way, everyone believes the grieving widow snapped. I nodded slowly as if considering. Smart. You've thought of everything. Even the anonymous tip to the police, accusing me of Henry's murder. That was you, wasn't it? Clara's smirk returned. You're not as clueless as we thought. Yes, it was us. A backup plan in case you got too curious. The police already suspect you. Your access to Henry's pills, the insurance policy you didn't know about. It's perfect. I let my shoulders slump, playing the defeated old woman. You've been listening to me, haven't you? My phone, my emails. James grinned, clearly proud. Since yesterday, tracker on Daniel's truck, cloned your phone. We heard your little plan with the blackmail email, the cryptocurrency nonsense. You thought you could scare me into betraying Clara. Pathetic. I nodded, keeping my voice soft. You're good, James, but you missed something. His grin faltered. What? I leaned forward, my eyes locked on his. I sent a letter to Henry's lawyer, Mr. Brennan, 2 days ago, sealed, with instructions to open it if anything happens to me. It has everything. Copies of Clara's messages, the trust documents, the bank records. If I die, he'll take it to the police. Clara laughed, but it was strained. You're bluffing. You didn't have time. I smiled, cold and steady. Didn't I? You've been tracking my digital moves, but I'm 70 years old. I know how to use the post office. I met Brennan in person, handed him the envelope myself. No emails, no texts, nothing for you to intercept. It was a lie, but they didn't know that. Doubt flickered in James's eyes, and Clara's grip on the gun tightened. You're lying, she snapped. Am I? I said. Test me, kill me, and see if Brennan doesn't show up at the police station tomorrow with a file that destroys you both. The room grew tense, their confidence cracking. I needed to push further, keep them talking. Tell me about the digoxin, I said. How'd you get it? You're a nurse, Clara. You'd know where to find it. She hesitated, then shrugged, her ego getting the better of her. Canada. Online pharmacy. Fake name. Shipped to a P.O. box. Easy, when you know the system. I nodded, as if impressed. And the insurance policy? Forging Henry's signature was clever. James couldn't resist. My idea. Set up the trust, named myself trustee. Henry thought he was signing a deed for this cabin. The policy paid out to the trust, and we've been moving the money slowly so no one notices. I reached for the paper and pen they'd pushed toward me, pretending to start the confession. Instead, I wrote, On October 6th, 2025, I, Maggie Sullivan, came to the Lake Champlain cabin owned by James Sullivan. Present are James and Clara Sullivan, who admitted to poisoning my husband, Henry Sullivan, with digoxin and committing insurance fraud via a fraudulent trust. They couldn't see the words from their angle, too confident I'd comply. I kept them talking, my pen moving. "How long did you dose, Henry?" I asked. "Weeks," Clara said, her voice smug. "Mixed it with his heart meds, built up slowly so it looked natural. That last dinner, I added a final dose to his food. Heart attack, just like the doctors expected." My heart broke anew, but I kept writing, documenting every word. Clara admitted to administering digoxin to Henry over weeks, culminating in a fatal dose at a family dinner. "And the trust?" I prompted. James smirked. "I control it. Clara gets 40%, I get 40%, and the rest goes to you and Daniel to keep it looking legit. Once you're gone, we'll take it all." I wrote it down, my hand steady despite the rage boiling inside. James confessed to creating the Henry Sullivan Memorial Trust to divert insurance funds, splitting 80% between himself and Clara. "Are you done yet?" Clara snapped, growing impatient. "Almost," I said, finishing the final lines. "They are threatening to kill me unless I confess to Henry's murder. This is my true testimony." I set the pen down, my heart racing. I had their confession, but I was still trapped, the gun too close to Clara's hand. Then I noticed it. The revolver's handle was angled slightly toward me, a careless mistake when she'd set it down. It wasn't close enough to grab, but I could knock it away if I acted fast. "One last thing," I said, locking eyes with Clara. "You forgot something else. Daniel's not as impulsive as you think. He's outside, and he's not alone." Her face paled, and James spun toward the window. I seized the moment, slamming my hand on the table's edge, flipping it upward with a strength I didn't know I had. The gun skidded across the floor, papers flying. Clara lunged for it, but the window behind her shattered in a deafening crash. Daniel burst through, glass cutting his face, his shoulder slamming into Clara. The gun fired, the bullet lodging in the ceiling. "Mum, get out!" he shouted, wrestling the weapon from Clara's hands. Through the broken window, I saw Detective Larson and 2 officers sprinting toward the cabin, weapons drawn. James tried to run, but I tripped him with a quick jab of my foot, sending him sprawling. Within seconds, the officers were inside, shouting commands. "Hands up! On the ground!" Clara and James froze, their faces a mix of shock and defeat. Larson bagged my written testimony, her eyes scanning the room. Daniel handed over his phone, showing the recording he'd made through the window. Every word of their confession, captured legally from public property. "You could have been killed, Mrs. Sullivan," Larson said, her voice a mix of admiration and frustration. "But you got them." I nodded, my hands shaking now as the adrenaline faded. "I had to. For Henry, for Ethan." Daniel, blood trickling down his cheek, gripped my shoulder. "I told you to stay with Ethan," I said, half scolding. He grinned despite the pain. "Dropped him at the station with Larson first. Told her everything. Played the lake house recording from last night. She was ready to move." Larson confirmed. "The window recording's admissible. They had no expectation of privacy. And you warned them you were recording. We've got enough to bury them." As Clara and James were cuffed and led to police cars, Clara glared at me through the window, her voice venomous. "This isn't over, Maggie." The door slammed, cutting her off. James, quieter, muttered, "We almost had it." I stepped closer, my voice firm. "You didn't. You underestimated me. That was your mistake." Larson escorted me to her car, not as a suspect, but as a witness. As we drove away, the lake house fading in the rear view, I felt a strange calm. The truth was out, and I'd survived. The war wasn't over. Trials loomed, but this battle was mine. The Vermont winter had settled in with a quiet ferocity, blanketing the farmhouse in a thick layer of snow that muffled the world outside. It was early January, 3 months after the confrontation at the lake house, and I stood at my kitchen window, watching the flakes drift down across the fields Henry and I had worked for 47 years. The oak table, worn smooth by decades of shared meals, stood silent behind me, no longer set with 2 coffee mugs each morning. That ritual had died with the truth, replaced by a new one, a single mug, steaming with black coffee, and a determination to face each day with clarity rather than illusion. At 70, I'd learned that grief wasn't something you outran. It was something you carried, reshaped, and eventually made peace with. The events of October had changed me, hardened me, but they'd also set me free. Clara and James were behind bars, their crimes exposed, but the scars they'd left on my family would take years to heal. This morning, though, the farmhouse felt calm, a sanctuary reclaimed from the lies that had tainted it. The trials had been swift, almost shockingly so. Clara and James's lawyers, faced with the overwhelming evidence, Daniel's legally admissible recording from outside the lake house window, my handwritten testimony detailing their confessions, the forged insurance documents, and the fraudulent trust records, had pushed for plea deals. Clara pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for poisoning Henry with digoxin and to insurance fraud for her role in the $500,000 policy scheme. She was sentenced to 25 years to life, her nursing license revoked, her cold calculation finally laid bare. James, her accomplice, pleaded guilty to conspiracy, accessory to murder, and fraud, earning 15 years. Their appeals were denied, the judge unmoved by their attempts to paint themselves as victims of circumstance. The insurance money, funneled into the illicit Henry Sullivan Memorial Trust, was recovered and returned to Henry's estate, rightfully mine as his widow. I'd placed most of it in a trust for Ethan's education, keeping only enough to maintain the farm and ensure I wouldn't burden Daniel as I aged. The money felt tainted, bought with Henry's life, but I'd make sure it served a purpose for the family he'd betrayed. The real victory, though, wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the quiet moments since, in the slow, painful steps my family was taking toward healing. I heard the crunch of boots on the porch, the familiar sound of snow being shaken off. The door swung open, and Ethan burst in, his cheeks flushed from the cold, his eyes bright with a child's enthusiasm. "Grandma, the snow's so deep by the barn. We could build a snowman or maybe a fort." At 13, he was caught in that fragile space between childhood and adolescence, his world upended by the truth about his mother. Yet here he was, still finding joy in a snowy morning. I smiled, warmth spreading through me. "A fort sounds perfect," I said. "But first, get those wet boots off before you track snow all over my kitchen." He grinned, kicking off his boots with exaggerated flair, and I marveled at his resilience. Children, I'd learned, could bend where adults broke. Daniel followed, carrying a bag of groceries, his face less haggard than it had been months ago, but still carrying the weight of betrayal. He and Ethan had moved into the farmhouse temporarily after Clara's arrest, turning my once lonely home into a place of noise and life again. Daniel set the groceries on the counter, his movements automatic, and glanced at me with a look I'd come to recognize, one that meant he needed to talk. "Ethan, go change into dry clothes," he said, his parental tone gentle but firm. Ethan bounded upstairs, his footsteps echoing through the house, and I turned to Daniel, bracing myself. "What is it?" I asked, pouring coffee for us both, though I knew we'd likely let it go cold. He sat at the table, running a hand through his hair. "Clara's lawyer called this morning," he said quietly. "She wants to see Ethan, says it's her right as his mother, that keeping them apart is cruel." The audacity of it stole my breath. Clara, who'd admitted Ethan was nothing more than a tool to secure her place in our family, who'd poisoned Henry and framed me for murder, now dared to claim maternal rights. I set my mug down, my hands steady despite the anger flaring in my chest. "What does Ethan want?" I asked, because that was what mattered most. Daniel's eyes were tired, haunted. "He says he never wants to see her again. He's angry, Mom. He feels like she broke everything, his trust, his family. But I'm scared. What if he regrets it later? What if he blames me for cutting her out?" I reached across the table, taking his hand. "You're his father, Daniel. Your job is to protect him now, to give him the stability he needs to heal. Ethan's 13. He's not ready to face a mother who used him, who killed his grandfather. If he changes his mind when he's older, you'll support him then. But today, you make the choice that keeps him safe." Daniel nodded slowly, his grip tightening on mine. "Her lawyer says she's in therapy, that she's remorseful, but I don't buy it." I shook my head, my voice firm. "Clara's a manipulator." I looked into her eyes at that lake house, Daniel. There was no remorse, no humanity, just calculation. Whatever she's telling her lawyer, it's a performance for the parole board she'll face in 20 years. Don't let her fool you again. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the snow outside. "How did you know, Mum? Before all this came out, did you ever suspect Clara wasn't who she seemed?" The question had haunted me for months. Had I missed signs? Could I have saved Henry if I'd been less trusting? "I thought she was distant sometimes," I admitted. "Too perfect, too controlled. I chalked it up to her being younger, different from me. I didn't want to judge her, so I ignored my instincts. But looking back, there were moments. Her insistence on helping with Henry's pills, the way she'd linger in rooms, watching, always watching. I thought she was being helpful. Now I know she was studying us, waiting for her chance." Daniel's jaw clenched. "She played us all. Dad saw someone who made him feel alive. I saw a wife who completed my life. Ethan saw his mum, and you saw a daughter-in-law trying to help." The truth hung heavy between us. Clara had been a chameleon, molding herself into what each of us needed to see. Upstairs, Ethan's footsteps creaked across the floorboards of Daniel's old childhood bedroom, a reminder that he was still here, still ours to protect. "He's doing better," Daniel said softly. "The therapist says he's processing it well, but it's hard. He wakes up crying some nights, asking why his mum didn't love him enough to stay good." My heart ached for my grandson, for the innocence Clara had stolen. "He'll heal," I said. "It'll take time, but he's strong, like his father." Daniel managed a small smile. "I'm still so angry, Mom. At Clara, at James, at Dad for starting this mess. Some days, I can't function." "That's normal," I assured him. "You're grieving a marriage, a father, a cousin, a life you thought you had. Anger's part of it. Let it fuel you, but don't let it consume you." He looked at me, his eyes searching. "How are you so calm? Dad cheated on you, lied for years. Doesn't that make you want to scream?" I felt the familiar burn of betrayal in my chest, but it was tempered now, refined into something manageable. "I'm furious," I admitted. "Every day I'm angry at Henry's weakness, his vanity, his betrayal, but I'm also free, knowing the truth, as painful as it is, means I'm not living in a lie anymore. I don't wonder why he pulled away, why he seemed distant. I know now. And that knowledge, its power, its freedom. Daniel nodded, his expression softening. I feel the same about Clara. The woman I married, I loved her, or who I thought she was. But the person who killed Dad, who used Ethan, who tried to frame you, I don't know her. I never did. We sat in silence, the kind that comes from shared pain and understanding, the snow outside piling higher, covering old wounds with a clean slate. Ethan's voice broke the quiet, calling from upstairs. Grandma, Dad, can we make hot chocolate? Maybe watch a movie? I smiled, standing to pull cocoa powder from the pantry. Get down here and help, young man, I called back, and soon Ethan was in the kitchen, chattering about school, his friends, the new video game he wanted. His enthusiasm was a balm, a reminder of why I'd fought so hard. Later that evening, after a movie and a dinner of Ethan's favourite spaghetti, after he'd gone to bed and Daniel had retreated to make calls to lawyers and counsellors, I wandered the farmhouse alone. My fingers traced the furniture Henry had built, the oak chair, the bookshelf in his study, each piece a relic of a life I'd once believed in. In his study, I faced the box I'd avoided for months. Henry's hospital belongings, returned to me after his death. His wallet, his watch, his wedding ring. I lifted the ring, its gold surface catching the lamplight, simple and engraved with our wedding date. I'd stopped wearing mine, locking it away, but holding his now stirred something complex, grief, anger, and a strange sense of closure. Beneath the ring, I found a sealed envelope, yellowed with age, my name scrawled in Henry's messy handwriting, not the neat forgery Clara had used. My hands trembled as I opened it. My dearest Maggie, it began, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I was too cowardly to say this in life. I've betrayed you in ways I can't justify. I let vanity and weakness pull me into something I couldn't escape, and it broke everything I loved. You deserved better. A husband who honored you, who stayed true. I'm sorry for the lies, for taking your trust and throwing it away. You were never the problem. It was me, my selfishness, my failure to see what I had until it was too late. You're stronger than I ever was, Maggie, wiser and kinder than I deserved. I hope you find peace, happiness, a life free of my mistakes. I'm sorry. Always. Henry. Tears blurred the words, not for the man who'd written them, but for the life we might have had if he'd been honest. Had he known Clara was poisoning him? Had he sensed his end and written this as a final confession? I'd never know, but the letter gave me something I hadn't expected. Validation. I hadn't been the neglectful wife Clara claimed, nor the naive widow James mocked. I'd been enough, and Henry had failed me, not the other way around. I folded the letter and placed it back in the box, closing the lid on that chapter of my life. The farmhouse was mine now, not just Henry's legacy, but my own. I wouldn't let Clara and James drive me from the home I'd built, the land I'd nurtured, the family I'd fought for. I'd stay here, raise Ethan alongside Daniel, and teach him the lessons I'd learned the hard way, that trust is earned, that kindness isn't weakness, that instincts are worth listening to. I'd be the grandmother he needed, fierce, protective, unbreakable. As I checked on Ethan, asleep in his room, his face peaceful in the moonlight, I made a silent vow. No one would hurt him again, not while I was here. That night, as the farmhouse settled around me, the winter wind howling outside, I thought about what I'd become. Clara had called me an old woman, as if age were a flaw. But age had been my weapon. Patience, experience, the ability to play the long game while others chased quick wins. I'd survived betrayal, a murder plot, and an attempt to frame me using nothing but my wits and persistence. At 70, I was dangerous in ways they'd never imagined, and I'd never be underestimated again. I climbed into bed, my phone buzzing with a text from Daniel downstairs. "Thank you, Mum, for fighting for us, for being stronger than we knew. I love you." I smiled, typing back, "I love you too. Sleep well. Tomorrow we rebuild." And we would, day by day, truth by truth, building a future stronger than the lies we'd left behind.